Well, basically, his answer, what manipulation? Gerald Celente, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
How are things in the Northeast up there?
Quite a heat wave, a tropical heat wave.
That's okay. We finally dumped the heat and we're getting the water down here, so sorry for you, hooray for us.
Yeah.
Hey, Mr. Bernanke, on Gerald, why does he even bother showing up at these testimonials in Congress? I mean, seriously.
Well, it's all a show. I mean, why should he have ever shown up? I mean, he hasn't said anything since he's been in, and everything he says is usually wrong. And I'm not making that up. You could go back and document it. You go back to 2007. We're saying we're going into the panic of '08, and he's testifying before Congress saying that there's no threat of a recession. And then you go back a year earlier than that, and he's saying there's no fear of a subprime crisis. And then you go into 2008 as the recession's already underway, and he's saying there is no recession. But you see, this is matter of fact. We're just finishing up our Summer Trends Journal, and the theme is how often they lie and how they keep getting away with it. And I don't care what it is. You could talk about. We're talking now about the economy. I have a good one for you. How about the fundamentals of the economy is sound? George W. Bush and John McCain. How about Obama saying that if you go through with my stimulus program, that by 2010 we'll have 7.2% unemployment. And how about this? We need a good troop surge over there in Afghanistan, and that'll clean things right out. I mean, one after the other. You name me one program that they have been successful on, whether it's education, whether it's healthcare, whether it's the environment, whether it's the economy. They are total frauds and failures, and that people keep voting for them.
Well, and I wanted to ask you this because what's been kept out of the U.S. media has been what they've done in Iceland. Now, Gerald, they've been around for over 1,000 years, one form of government or another. They got hit by the same thing that the rest of the planet got hit by, and that's these mortgage-backed derivatives. But they handled it a little bit different way. The people there were upset. The people went to the politicians. They said, look, we need to clear this mess up. The politicians were running interference for the bankers. So what the people did is they got rid of the politicians that stood in their way of slipping the proverbial noose around the bankers' necks. And the ones that escaped, well, they're actually tracking them down around the globe. They want to drag them back to Iceland and have them stand trial for the crimes that have been committed.
And one other thing. They didn't bail out the banks. You know what they did? They bailed out the people. That was the big difference. It's a takeover. It's just coming to light now. We've been saying this since it began. It's the biggest bank robbery in world history, and the banks are doing the robbing. It's like with the LIBOR scandal. It's like with the MF Global scandal. It's with the Peregrine scandal. It's with HSBC. HSBC admitting to money laundering.
Gerald, I have to add this. I don't know whether you were paying attention to this today, but while Bernanke was giving his testimony, head of the CFTC, Gensler, was before the U.S. Agricultural Committee. And they asked him, how is it that the CFTC didn't see MF Global and PFG situation arise? And you know what Gensler's response was?
Nope.
The CFTC is understaffed and we need more money.
You know what Celente's response would be? That Gary Gensler is a former shill a former worker for John Corzine when Corzine was the CEO of Goldman Sachs, and so too was Gary Gensler. He was in Goldman Sachs' gang as well. The whole game is rigged. From the LIBOR scandal, the game is rigged, and if anybody out there thinks that they could play it and win, go to Atlantic City and come back a millionaire, because those are your same odds. That's why Gary Gensler doesn't see it. That's why not one head on Wall Street is rolled. That's why John Corzine hasn't been brought up on charges. It's all the same club. Harvard, Princeton, Yale, bullets, bombs, and banks. That's their business.
Well, and Gerald, and what's being offered to us now, and I love this, since the Commodities Future Trading Commission did such a fine job, the Security Exchange Commission did such a fine job in watchdogging. Now what we're being told that, maybe we should bring back, maybe we should disinclude here investment banking, and maybe we should go back to the old rules. And I'm listening to this, and I'm thinking, the barn door is just not been thrown open. The damn barn door, the whole barn has been burned to the ground, and everything in it is gone. Now, after everything is destroyed and there's so much debt, we're being told that as long as we go back to that point, we should be okay.
We have sociopaths in charge. The sociopaths on the economic front and the psychopaths on the military front. These are sick people. When are they going to wake up for it? When are people going to wake up and see who's ruling them? And that's, by the way, with this is driving me crazy, that I cannot believe, and people will argue which sociopath is better than the other one. Look, we're already going into an election cycle that most people admit to. Well, I'm going to vote for so-and-so because he's a lesser of two evils.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Would you hang out with a lesser of two evils? Would you have a partner that's a lesser of two evils? Would you marry someone that's a lesser of two evils?
The only difference that I see is one candidate is black and the other one's white, but they're both of the same ilk.
Exactly.
And the one guy that they have tried to keep out of this is Ron Paul. Now, there's some interesting stuff going on here, Gerald, that in fact, what I've been gathering here is, in fact, his name is going to be on the ballot down in Tampa next month. Now, the RNC has not come out with an official statement, but people have been talking to the hierarchy of the RNC. He's taken the plurality of 5 states, maybe 6. You saw what they did in Connecticut and or was it Massachusetts, that they excused 19 Ron Paul delegates that were going to go down to Tampa. Hey, new rules. We threw something out there. You didn't respond fast enough, so therefore you're excused. Well, here's the political fix. You and I both know that the one thing that has to take place in this country, if we've got to get rid of these banker bastards that have taken us right down. And I mean, so far down, we may not come back. That's how dangerous this situation is.
Well, exactly. And again, who would vote for a lesser of two evils to run them? And it's not only in the U.S. The big news that came out of Europe that was not reported was, no, this isn't a bailout for Greece or Spain or Italy. It's a banker takeover. They're building a central bank just like the one they have in the U.S., and now Brussels is going to be the headquarters of the new European Central Bank in the terms of all of the countries are going to lose their sovereignty. Just as you were talking about, the possibility. Imagine if they repeal if they put back in place the Glass-Steagall Act.
Yeah.
Yeah, remember in the old days, there were banks in every community. There was no such thing as interstate banking. It was prohibited. Why? Because they knew of the excesses. There was no such thing called as investment banking. There was commercial banking. You know what investment banking was called? Gambling. But they made that legal. Who made it legal? Oh, it came under the Clinton administration. Oh, the same people that deregulated the trade situation and brought us NAFTA. You remember all those high-paying jobs we'd have and how our standard of living would increase. So as we're looking at this and looking at what's going on in the banking sector, the same thing is now happening in Europe. It's a banking takeover. It's a banking takeover. The banks are taking over the world. Rothschild's words that he uttered 200 years ago have now become fact. He said that no one would understand what was going on, and the banks would rule. It's there, it's now, it's happened, and we'd become enslaved by them. Look, we have a whole generation of people, a whole generation that have gone to college. Could you imagine any of us getting out of school with $25,000, $50,000, $100,000 worth of debt? Could you just imagine that? And then having the rest of our lives, we have to pay that off. So you get out of school, you're not buying cars, you're not buying homes, you're not even getting married, you're broke. They're turning us into indentured servants. It's better than slavery. They don't have to take care of us. Yeah. All they do is want us to work at menial jobs so we could give them every ounce of money that we make.
And I'll tell you what, politically, and this is only a stopgap in regards to, if by some miracle and a good Texas tailwind that Ron Paul does get into that RNC in Tampa. And a few months ago, you probably didn't see this clip, and I should have sent it over to you. Ron Paul was up in Dallas, and there was an AP guy, Dallas Morning News, that went backstage, and I did as well. Well, they asked their stupid little questions, and then I asked Ron Paul. I said, Warren G. Harding, there was a guy that had next to no electoral votes, but once the convention took place, nobody liked who was running, so they all voted Warren G. Harding in. And he looked at me and he smiled and he lit up like a 150-watt light bulb and he says, "You know your history, don't you?" And I said, "Yes, I do." They have been trying to disinclude this guy. And first thing, here's the guy who wants to audit the Fed and then dump it. Okay, we don't need this anymore. We are broke. We're up to our eyeballs in this debt. And as I said, what they did in Iceland, the politicians would not go after the real criminals, so they got rid of the politicians. Putting Ron Paul in the Oval Office, the guy that signs the stuff coming out of Congress, that's truly the bully pulpit. And he could slow things down quite a bit to allow us, Gerald Celente, to go to work in our respective states, to try to bring some sanity. The damn country, this is reading like the first chapter of Atlas Shrugged, for God's sakes.
We've been writing about this for years.
My God.
The system is breaking down in front of us. What is it? A shooting yesterday, 17 killed.
Yeah.
You got 3 kids beating up an old man, beating him to death, knockout punch, and then putting it up on YouTube. Every day, 300 kids in a Walmart flash mob.
Yeah, I saw that as well.
Can't anybody see what's going on? And then you're going to hear the morons say, you know what we got to do? I'll tell you, we got to crack down on crime. Crack down on crime? This is as old as history, Jack. Here's how it goes.
Yeah.
You take the money and few grab all of it, and the rest of society sinks down. This is what you have in a decaying society. This is third world behavior, and no one wants to call it what it is. We're sinking into a third world nation.
Well, Gerald, you know where this is all heading, don't you? If we do not have good men that will stand up for principle, for honesty, you know where this is going to go.
Oh, I know where it's going. It's the cover of the Trends Journal that we sent you. All aboard, next train to Auschwitz. Anybody that stands up and speaks out, they're going to take you away. That's why they put in place the National Defense Authorization Act. That's why they have all of these executive orders. That's why they have guidelines from the Attorney General that are listening into you, me, and everybody else that's listening in, and having algorithms to see whether or not we'll be an enemy of the state. That's why they could kill any of us anytime they want without any charges, without any jury, without any trial, without any writs of habeas corpus. That's where it's going.
Well, we've got some major problems here, and they're not going to get fixed. Here's a clue for everybody. When Dick Cheney, Jesus, this guy, God, he should be marching up the gallows in an honest republic with an honest structure. This guy should be being marched up the gallows steps as we speak. But just the other day, he was in Wilson, Wyoming, He was doing fundraising, and he told the Republican fundraisers that, well, Mitt Romney is the only man that can make the right decisions in unexpected foreign policy crises. We're almost fighting 3 different empire wars in the Middle East. The guy that I mentioned before, what the hell was his name? Ron something? Oh, yeah, that's right. Ron Paul said, you know what? Your foreign policy sucks. We don't, number one, have the moral authority to be doing this. Number two, you idiots, we don't even have the money to do it. We've got an infrastructure right now, bridges, roads, sewer treatment plants, whatever. We need between $2 and $3 trillion, Gerald, just to fix that right now to bring it up to an acceptable standard. No, but we got $5 or $6 trillion to piss away in the Middle East to go kill a bunch of people that didn't do anything to us.
You got it. And again, you know, you talk about Dick Cheney and you talk about Bush. You know, how about, you know, how you think about it? Think about this. Richard Nixon left office after the Watergate scandal. That was chump change compared to these war crimes that these guys have committed. And they're still, and they get to write books and appear on, you know, Face the Nation. I mean, this is the difference. You know, that think about Watergate and think about the Iraq War. That's costing now, according to Stiglitz and others, $3 trillion. There you go, to bring the infrastructure back up to speed. The Afghan War, fought for fake reasons. Oh, we got to get that Osama bin Laden. Yeah, and how about those strikes into Pakistan and Yemen and Somalia and Sudan, drone strikes killing innocent people. So when you look at the facts, these guys should have been brought up on brought into a war crime tribunal a long time ago. But Watergate brings down a president. That shows you where our nation is and how far down it's gone and where it's going. And that's why I talk about GC's, Gerald Celente's 3 Gs. Guns, gold, and a getaway plan.
Years ago, I used to say bullets, Bibles, and your beans. Bring those as well.
Yep.
Because we're going to... The problem that we have in this country right now is we do not have any representation. And I include, Gerald, the governors of our states as well, because these are the first people that should be standing up to Washington, D.C. and going, you know what, the party's over. Now we're going to tell you what we are going to do.
But the reason we don't have any representation is because they don't represent us. They represent the people that give them what they like to call campaign contributions, that adults call bribes and payoffs. That's all they're concerned about. Pick up the phone. Call anybody out there. Call up your governor. Tell him you like to talk to him. And they'll get some flunky on the phone. And then call back and say, listen, I'd like to give the governor a $30,000 donation to his next campaign. And see how far you get.
Hey, get right to the governor.
You got it.
I think the really sad commentary was the other day. Jack Abramoff was on 60 Minutes when he was telling them what it took to bribe a congressman or a senator, and it was pretty much expensive meals and tickets to football games was pretty much all you needed to get a congressman or senator's ear. And if that failed, all you did was go to his aides and offer them a job that paid them more than they were getting right now, and you could achieve your objective. So,
well, also, Gerald, you weren't around for the first half of the program. I'm going into the cultural decay of this country.
Well, that's it, and that's, to me, nothing is going to change until the people change. The people are tolerating these wars. We do Trends in the News features every day as part of the subscription. And the other day, on last Friday, I read the 6 people that were killed in Afghanistan last week. And you know, there were 21, 20. Well, there was one over 30. All of them were 21 and 20. Yeah. Nobody cares.
Nope.
Nobody's talking about this. You know, there's this wonderful saying that when the student's ready, the teacher appears, a Hindu saying. My belief is that when the people are ready, the leadership will appear. And to me, the people are not ready. You know, I'm a guy that grew up in the Bronx. and then we social climb to Yonkers. So going back into my old life, if I was a guy now on the street, and I was going to do a deal, a dirty deal, and I had one of the guys that was giving me a little lip and saying, "Hey, come on, Gerald, that's not moral. That's thievery." You know what I'd say to him if I was one of those guys back then, and one of the guys on the streets now? I say, "Why, you sap, you jerk. Look how they're ripping you off every day. Look at how the banks rip you off. Look at how the credit card companies rip you off. Look at how the governments rip you off. Look how they sent Joey over to Afghanistan 6 times. You're not going to rip them off, you jerk. You sap. Get the hell out of here. Come on, guys, let's go." That's what's going on in the streets. Doesn't anybody get it?
Gerald,
the fish rots from the head down, and the fish is rotten at the head of Congress, at the head of the Senate, at the head of the judiciary, the head of the governors, right down to the bottom.
We've only got you for a half hour, and our time is just about up. This network, I just want to let you know, this network is expanding rapidly. And as you come on this program, trendsresearch.com, ladies and gentlemen, I want more people to get this guy's newsletter because he knows what the hell's going on. And he's got one foot in the mainstream and one foot in the alternative. Well, we're the alternative to the bullshit news. Excuse my French, but I can say it no other way.
Well, listen, if Rick Santorum could say it, you can say it, and I could say it, and everybody out there could say it. It's bullshit.
Gerald Celente, thank you, my friend.